Hello, welcome to the first episode of Scouting for Points. I'm joined today by my co-hosts Ryan and Jack. Gents, how are you? Excited for the first episode? So something that's been playing on my mind, keeping me up at night, I must say, is the goalkeeper dilemma. I think it's particularly important, come the start of the season, or if you're implementing your wild card throughout, which goalkeepers do you pick? Do you opt for the usual, two cheapies, two 4.5s, so like a Sanchez at Brighton or a McCarthy at Southampton? Or do you even go for like a more expensive Edison option, who normally is pretty consistent, alongside maybe a cheapie like Scott Carson, 3.9 mil? So Jack, what advice would you give managers on this dilemma when picking goalkeepers at the start of the season?
I find it's a tricky one. I mean, Edison, in my opinion, is clearly the best goalkeeper, particularly in the second half of the season. He's going to get the most amount of points, but only 9% of teams are selecting him. For me, I do like two goalkeepers that play. But then the other option, really, that other people go for is the cheapest possible goalkeeper, who won't play, and a starting goalkeeper. Now, do you know what? I see a benefit to that as well, because that way you don't have that the regret of having two keepers that play, two good goalkeepers that play, and then putting the wrong one in your team, and then the one on the bench gets you the points.
Ryan, though, what would you say? Kind of, as they're coming into the finale of the season, what two keeper options would you pick now, based on the remaining fixtures, game weeks left?
I mean, having a look at the fixtures that are kind of coming up, I would actually put in a keeper temporarily and then swap him out. And that keeper would actually be Edison. It's a very short-term option, but he's actually got very favorable fixtures. He's obviously the most expensive keeper, so not everyone can afford him. But really, with two double game weeks, and he's probably City's only player that will not rotate out of the squad, so he's a good option there. If obviously money is and if you have Edison and you plan to play him, there's no need to kind of have a decent backup. So I would just put in a cheap player, like you mentioned, like Scott Carson or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The other option that people have is, at some point, I mean, I would literally put in Edison for a couple of game weeks and then take him back out, and I would actually replace him with Martinez from Aston Villa.
He's been a standout goalkeeper this season. He really has. I mean,
Yeah.
over 37% of teams have him. Price increase of just shy of £1 million from the season,
Yeah.
and I think more importantly, he's been awarded 19 bonus points. So
And it's not just for that reason as well. I mean, obviously, yes, he's cheaper than Edison at 5.3, but one of the main reasons for putting Martinez in is that Aston Villa have only played 23 games, whereas a lot of the other teams have pretty much played 25 games.
Yeah.
I think Spurs and West Ham are the only other teams that have a game in hand, but Villa have 2 games in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So from just an appearance point of view, Martinez is going to get more points, and he's undoubtedly going to be involved in more double game weeks going forward. So he's a good option, and you can like pair him up with, I don't know, a Sam Johnston, for example, just so that you can rotate in Johnston when Martinez has a difficult fixture, for example.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of players in the 4.5 million category who you can bring in to go along Martinez.
All right, so looking at the predictions for this week, well, there's a lot of games where we've picked completely different results here, particularly the West Brom Brighton game. Matt, you've gone for a draw in this one. Are you sitting on the fence here, or you just can't decide?
Just because you've gone for Brighton. I think personally West Brom are due a little bit of fortune. Whether a home draw to Brighton is what you call a bit of fortune. However, I don't necessarily see goals from either team. I think it's unfortunately going to be probably the last game showed on Saturday night Match of the Day. No offence, West Brom right fans, but yeah, it's going to be one of those 0-0 4 draws, I'm afraid.
The other one that stands out to me is the other West Brom game. West Brom home to Everton. I'm a little shocked to see 2 of us have gone for West Brom here in a draw. Have we lost faith in Everton and the quality in their squad?
I don't think so. I mean, but the problem with Everton, much like with almost every team in the league this year, is everyone goes through a dip. And, I expect West Brom have been through that dip for the first half of the season and might actually perform well this game. And Everton could just end up having an off day. But aside from that, Everton do have quality. They can score. It's a home game for West Brom. And if they are really going to have any chance of surviving, they will need to win home games against teams like Everton.
Yeah, I think, I guess lastly, Matt, I think it looks like there might be some banana skins here for the big teams. But no one's really convinced on, well, you guys are, but we haven't all been able to decide on City beating West Ham, City beating Wolves. That's me on both of those. But then you look at like the Man United versus Palace game. Spitz has gone for a draw in that one. Mm-hmm. I think there is some banana skins in this game week, and I think if you're doing an accumulator, you do well to get anything right this week.
I think you're always going to take into consideration the European matches, obviously taking place the last few nights. With congested fixtures this weekend and also midweek. So there is obviously a good chance that there'll be squad rotations and, as you mentioned, potential banana skins.
Cool. So moving on, transfers. I guess this is what we're here for. Who do we think we should drop into the team? Matt, do you want to kick us off with your preferences for the week?
Based on the upcoming Gameweek 26?
Yeah.
The teams that stand out for me as having more favourable fixtures are Everton, City, and also Spurs. You boys obviously can argue that. So I would probably opt for, if you haven't got him already, I would say Gundogan. Obviously, he's hopefully back this weekend for City. He's been in amazing form throughout the beginning of this year. Doesn't seem like a player that will be rotated either by Pep. He's just been obviously playing in that sort of number 10 role, which not really normally done. Always threatening with goals, taking penalties as well. So I would say has to go in teams this week.
For me, Bale. He's cheaper than Son, and I think he's going to get more points than Son. Not just this week, but looking forward. I think a lot does depend on this week if he performs. If he performs, he'll be playing for the rest of the season, assuming he's fit. But yeah, 9.3, Son's 9.5. He's going to take a lot of free kicks, isn't he? And he's taken the corners as well from the right side. I would have thought Son would continue to take them from the left side. But I think it's an interesting one. He is expensive, but this is the week. If he's going to perform, it's going to be this week.
I think part of my thinking, though, Jack, with Gundogan or even a City player is obviously they've got a double game week, week 27 as well. Yeah, so I think that's just, if you want to look short term, sure, or long term, Bale is a very controversial pick.
I would agree.
I wouldn't recommend that personally, but I do take on board what you're saying. I think he has warranted more game time in the Premier League, that's for sure. Because let's be honest, Spurs aren't performing. So it'd be interesting to see what Jose does.
That kind of brings me nicely on to my transfer. Who would? I mean, it's one we
discussed. I didn't put Bale in. Let me just clarify that. I just saying who I think is a good transfer.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that brings me nicely on to my transfer pick, which is someone who we've talked about earlier, and that's Edison. Four games in 2 weeks, he's bound to play all of them. So. And I think they're all home games as well. So I expect City to be picking up clean sheet points. And really, if you have the funds at 6.1, he is a much better shout than, say, Ruben Dias or Laporte or Kyle Walker. John Stones is quite cheap. But again, like you said, I expect John Stones to only play one game.